Authorities are continuing their search for the fiancé of 22-year-old Gabby Petito. Teams are looking for Brian Laundrie in a swamp preserve near his parents' home in Northport, Florida. Petito's remains were found at Grand Teton National Park in Wyoming last Sunday. Jerika Duncan has the latest.
Today, veteran dive teams were called in to search underwater on the 24,000-acre reserve. They're using sonar equipment and boats, in addition to helicopters and drones. Still, no sign of 23-year-old Brian Laundrie, who hasn't been seen since the 14th, according to his parents, and is a person of interest in the death of Gabby Petito. A newly released witness statement from the day police pulled the couple over details the argument that led to this body cam footage. The witness says the two were fighting over Petito's phone. Laundrie was trying to keep her out of the van. In Wyoming, the coroner's office says final autopsy results for Petito will take another 2 to 3 weeks. Signs that Petito will not be forgotten include this memorial in Florida and ribbons tied around trees in her New York hometown. The FBI credited the online community for sharing valuable information and images to help lead authorities to the 22-year-old. But Petito's disappearance and subsequent death have raised questions about other missing persons cases, nearly 90,000 nationwide.
First and foremost, my heart goes out to her family.
Derica Wilson is with the Black and Missing Foundation.
But, at the same time, there are Gabby Petitos and the Black and Brown community, and these families are desperate just to get their cases heard. Missing persons isn't a Black issue. It's not a white issue. It is an American issue, and we all have to come together to bring these missing people home.
Lana, the Laundries appear to be holed up in their Northport home. There hasn't been a lot of activity there today. As for Petito's family, they are gathered on Long Island, where she is from. And on Friday, community members are expected to light candles from their homes in honor of Gabby Petito. Lana?
Very important points, Jerika. Thank you. To understand the legal side, I want to bring in Alfredo Garcia. He is a former assistant state attorney in Florida and a professor at St. Thomas University College of Law. Thank you for being here. As a former prosecutor, what do you make of this case?
It's a very tragic case, disappearance of a young lady who was 22 years old, tragic, and the manner in which it occurred, long period of her missing is truly sad. And so I think my heart goes out to the victims' families, because this has to be heart-wrenching for them. Unfortunately, when you prosecute cases or you defend cases, the human element is paramount, and it is really a tragic case when you have a young lady's life taken away from her at such a young age.
Can you explain how this case will proceed if and when Brian Laundrie is found, and what potential charges he might face?
Well, at this point in time, obviously, I assume the autopsy is not complete yet, so they have to determine the cause of her death. Obviously, the coroner has made the preliminary finding that it was a homicide. Of course, it's a little bit more complicated to determine exactly the cause of death. And that would largely determine the charges in this case once they link a suspect to the death, which means that, of course, that the most severe homicide is murder in the first degree, which requires premeditation and deliberation on the part of the offender. That is to say, he or she premeditated and deliberated upon the killing. And I surmise that that's why it's taken a while for the release of the coroner's finding on the cause of death.
Certainly, there are significant implications based off of those findings. Federal agents executed a search warrant on Laundrie's parents' home on Monday, where he lives. What type of evidence would the FBI be looking for?
Any evidence that would uncover a link to her death, whether that would be documents, whether that would be any other type of physical evidence that would help them link a suspect to the crime and give them probable cause to arrest that suspect for the homicide.
Are there any conditions under which Brian Laundrie's parents might be held criminally responsible?
Since they live in Florida, the charge in Florida that could be leveled against them would be as accessories after the fact. And that is a very hard charge to prove because you have to establish that they knew that he committed the crime and that they intentionally helped him escape arrest, apprehension, ultimately trial and or conviction. So you have to have knowledge of that the crime was committed and intention to assist the person who committed the crime in avoiding apprehension. So,
and of course, we don't know if that's the case. We don't know if that's the case, but there isn't the type of spousal privilege that that exists for parents. Is that right?
Well, it's very interesting. The statute in Florida actually does provide immunity if the underlying crime that the offender committed is only a third-degree felony. However, that does not exist if you have a more serious offense, which would be the case here if they linked Brian to the crime. That is to say, if indeed it was homicide, then they wouldn't get the privilege provided in the statute for a parent and or someone who has consanguinity who assists the offender in evading apprehension.
All right. Alfredo Garcia, thank you.
You're quite welcome.